Hey there, Hari here, and I'm finally back with a new video and hopefully more to come. As many of you know, or maybe don't know, I have been on vacation from mid-October to mid-November, and when I did get back, I came down with a very bad case of strep throat, which prevented me from really talking, eating, and sleeping. So it has been a very painful week and a half or so. Finally a bit better now though. Still a little bit sick, but at least I'm able to eat, able to sleep. So that's good. Okay. We will most likely be going over more Guardian things as well as some of the other tanks that I am actually starting to gear up now. Currently only working on the Prop Pally, Vengeance, and Brewmaster. I would like to kind of work on the Prop Warrior as well, and the Blood DK, but I do not think Blood DK will be meta, just for similar reasons as the previous couple of tiers. It's just as you get into the very high keys, Blood DK kind of just falls over. The fizz damage on some of these bosses as well is absolutely terrifying. Not sure DK can really survive against some of these bosses. Now, that being said, let's take a look at Guardian Druid. So far, I've been playing with, well, first off, I've only been doing primarily low keys. Nothing higher than like, a 24. I've been primarily just hunting for gear on the Boomy first 2 weeks, just, raid focus. But now that I've kind of geared out, gotten all my Boomy gear from M+, I can start, doing some more IO keys, things like that. So we'll be pushing some more IO this week. But as you can tell, I haven't really done very, very high keys. And so I've been playing this kind of Twin Moonfire build with Raze and Ursoc's Fury. Build feels absolutely fine. I have no issues with it on, 23, 24 keys, I would say, for most dungeons. Feels absolutely fine. No issues whatsoever. But I think once I get into the higher keys, and there's currently server maintenance, so I'll pull up a Wowhead talent tree. But once you start getting to the higher keys, I do think I will probably have to swap off the Twin Moonfire or try to play a slightly different build. And the reason for that is I just don't think I would be tanky enough. Feel like I'm missing a little bit there. But let's just take a look at the top of the talent tree real quick. Currently, I do feel like you kind of need the Ursoc's Endurance. With the reduced rage generation, spending a lot of rage on Iron Fur is a little limited. So having that extra 2 seconds on every Iron Fur does matter quite a bit now. So just gonna kind of go down this side of the tree. What that does mean is you probably do drop after the Wildfire and Survival of the Fittest. I think Survival of the Fittest dropping this is okay. You probably won't notice it until you get into the very high-end keys on Tyran weeks specifically. There are certain magic tank busters on some of these bosses where the interval between each one might require you to take Survival of the Fittest or run a defensive trinket. Nothing else really changes here though. You still want to take Soul of the Forest. You need that extra rage gen from your Mangles now. You definitely want Thorns of Iron. It is still a decent chunk of damage for 1 point. And then obviously the Vicious Cycle for the Raze. Brendan Tear with Ursoc's Fury. Still a decent decent amount of healing. And then Rage of the Sleeper, obviously, because of the tier set revolves around it completely now. And then your last 2 points. Previously, you would put in Flashing Claws, which I think is still absolutely fine. There's no issues with this. But I do think Twin Moonfire is better for single target damage, things like that. Or like 2 target damage. So you do have the option of going this, but personally I think as you get into the hierarchies, Flashing Claws might be a little bit better. Well, not a little bit, definitely better, because it adds an additional 4% DR to all the mobs you're attacking. So this is still, this is the last series build, still a very good build. Alternatives to this build, I think you could try the Moonfire route. I have played around with it, but again, just haven't done high enough keys for it to really, for me to really say, oh yeah, this is good enough. But let me show you guys real quick. So this is what I was playing around with for the Moonfire build. You still have, 6% DR from your thrashes. And an additional 5% DR on most of the mobs. Depends on how well you keep up your Moonfire on all targets. You have the additional healing from Elun's Favored. So this kind of replaces Ursoc's Fury a little bit. But I do think Ursoc's Fury is just better. It is just better. It helps a lot with the tank busters in regular fort packs. So gives you a bit of that cushion, which Elun's Favored will not help with. Elun's Favored is more for like sustain, but I don't think Guardian Druid really needs much sustain. With the healing you get from Frenzied Regen, if you manage Innate Resolve properly, where you press Frenzied Regen probably around like 40 to 50%, you get a lot of value out of that. And then obviously inside of Incarn you have unlimited Frenzied Regens. And then in addition to that, if you want, you can also take Dream of Cenarius, take out the Point and Fury of Nature. So as of right now, those are the main two builds. Not new builds by any means. I haven't really had the time to test out too many new builds yet, but I can take a look into that a little bit more this week. Now, as for my thoughts on the tank meta, as of right now, Vengeance DH and Prop Pally look like the clear winners. There are quite a few dungeons, specifically Throne of Tides and Everbloom, where the kicks just matter a little too much. There's a ton of casters, and the AoE silence, as well as, just Prop Pally silences help a lot with some of these packs. That being said, I do think it is manageable without those kicks, but you would require a coordinated group. Now, as we get into the high-end keys, the question, in my opinion, comes down more to not necessarily, Vengeance and Prop Pally bring the kicks, so those are required. I think it kind of comes down to, can these tanks survive some of the Tyrant bosses that absolutely slap? Say for example on Waycrest, we have the Tree boss, extremely high fizz damage. Not sure how each tank is going to play, or how each tank is going to compare against that boss, but there's also some other bosses that do heavy magic tank busters. I'm trying to think of which one. I was just doing one yesterday. I think it was, Rise. Murazon's Rise last boss. Heavy magic damage from the ads, as well as the boss tank frontal. So that one also slaps. Against those bosses, Vengeance might be a little bit better with its passive magic DR from tattoos. So again, I think it's going to come down to how these tanks survive against some of these higher end keys, against both Tyrant bosses as well as fort mobs. So that's going to be a very big point. I think Guardian compared to these mobs is pretty okay as far as survivability goes. Surprisingly, I think the Rage of the Sleeper tier set has performed a lot better than I thought it would. Mainly because the absorb shield does not get used up on melee attacks currently. Whether that's a bug or intended, I'm not sure. According to Dreamgrove, it's a bug, but I actually prefer it this way because Guardian Druid doesn't really have too many issues with melee attacks, with the exception of some of the bosses, obviously. But having that shield against magic damage, magic tank busters, for multiple, I should say, multiple magic tank busters, has been very, very nice. Because that is what Guardian Druid, kind of sucks the most at, taking in heavy magic damage. Aside from, your DR in Barkskin, SI, and Rage of the Sleeper, you don't have too much else aside from just spamming Frenzied Regen inside of Incarn, which is still very good, don't get me wrong. You have a lot of things to work with, but when it's like constant, say for example from Ruby Life Pool's the first boss, where it's just constant 4-minute fight, every single attack is just magic, you really just don't have too much to deal with that. Okay, anyways, that's pretty much about it. Just giving some thoughts here and there. We will continue to see how the tanks play out. Currently, there are a lot of tanks, for the highest IO, which doesn't really mean too much currently. Nobody's pushing keys currently, in my opinion at least, or none of these serious key pushers are pushing currently. So we'll continue, monitoring some of these tanks. Try to play some of these tanks as well. Try to get better at Vengeance. Try to get better at Prop Alley, and see if I can gear up the Prop Warrior as well. I don't think Monk or DK will be meta, but again, could be wrong. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I will start to post some more of my runs this week as I do, 25s, 26s. And I will see you again next time.